Hi, this is Greg McCoach, editor of the Mining Speculator. I'm here today at the 2020 September MIF conference. Today I'm interviewing Chairman Bill Sheriff of Golden Predator Mining Corp. Bill, welcome to the show.
Hi, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, exciting time. It's been quite the year since you and I last talked, in January, at the January MIF is when we last had you on board, right?
Yeah, it seems an eternity actually shaking
Wow.
hands and sitting in the same room with somebody, eh?
Oh yeah, boy, a lot has changed since January, right? So anyway, on our end, on the precious metals world, it's all good. We're making money. A lot of things are moving forward. Let's give all the investors and people who want to know more about Golden Predator, what's the latest? What's
Well,
going
of
on?
course, the big news was our 2019 drilling program at Brewery Creek. You know, all of our efforts have been shifted to Brewery Creek, where we've got production licenses in place for a portion of the deposit, and we're trying to move forward with reprocessing of the former heap leach that Viceroy put in, as well as additional hard rock mining. Historically, Brewery Creek's been known as a series of small pods that are all in the same property, but smaller pits. And our objective was to go in 2019 and improve up some of the area between these with obviously lower cutoff grades as a function of higher gold prices. We're able to look at it as more of a holistic approach and continuous structures, which has some obvious economic impacts if we were successful. Larger trucks, bigger production scenario, not working in such tight areas, and really turning it into a much more of an advanced, larger opportunity. And we were quite successful in that. Our resource estimate we just came out with was able to include 4 former individual separate resources, that being Canadian, Foster's, Kokanee, and Golden, into a single larger pit shell called Keg. And that now extends for about 3 kilometers in length, so certainly not small by any means. And we actually were able to even go beyond that and establish continuity of mineralization all the way into the Lucky Pit. And we don't have enough drill density between the Keg, the newly named larger pit, and the Lucky. So we'll actually be doing some drilling here starting within the next 3 weeks to further infill that area of continuous mineralization with the obvious goal of incorporating not only that 400-meter gap, but also the Lucky resource into the larger Keg resource. And we would
Yeah.
envision that Keg resource would be the main focus for the initial 5 or 6 years of any mine.
Yeah, well, and the higher gold price, like you said, is making this possible, trying to make, instead of multiple smaller pits, a one larger super pit, so to speak. But I would have to think, with the success you've had thus far, and we'll see what happens moving forward, but any company like you that has this type of gold resource has to be under the eyes of those who need to acquire ounces of gold, right? And
Well,
the acquisition activity, right?
you would certainly think so, and I think you'll see that heat up. Anytime you've got an asset, especially on the heap leach side, our grade's still at 1 gram per ton, which in the first world jurisdictions quite unusual. On the high side, a lot of the mines now are operating at half gram, 3/4 gram, somewhere in that neighborhood. So to have 1 gram of leachable resource in a first world country, a pretty nice position to be in, and I think we'll be rewarded for that.
I do. I believe so. And I to that point, I want to just say that Golden Predator, in my view, is greatly undervalued based on that one premise alone. If you believe in the bull market, and I think it's a bull market in gold and precious metals for years that will end in a super bull. If you believe that, a company like Golden Predator is greatly undervalued compared to where it will be as you're going through these steps, in my view. So,
Well, I think you're right, Greg. And you've got to remember a year ago, as you mentioned, how the situations changed. A year ago, small companies couldn't raise a nickel, and now all of a sudden we're thrust into the limelight. And our plans now were really set back at that time when financing was difficult, and we're
yeah.
in an enviable position of having a licensed resource. And so our objective was to get into production. Our ultimate resource is far larger than that. That's we've discussed in the Keg pit, and the ultimate exploration, who knows? We were still hitting 75% or so of our exploration holes when we last had a good thorough exploration program. We've been doing almost exclusively infill and a bit of exploration, which resulted in the first maiden resource for the Camp deposit, which is further west along the same trend, and drilling just really started there. So, we've got years and years of promising exploration across this rather enormous project, and we've still got soil anomalies that haven't been drilled from Viceroy days.
Wow.
I can drill until the cows come home. It's certainly gonna grow.
Right. Yeah, you still have that blue sky exploration potential on what is going to be a production asset, and that's a good combination to have in a jurisdiction like you're in. So you've got the infrastructure. It looks very promising, and I can't imagine that the merger and acquisition activity doesn't come and touch you at some point as this bull market continues. Yeah.
Well, you never can tell what's going to happen with that. We've got our heads down and are working. We got the resource estimate done and updated. Working on the feasibility level study on the heap reprocessing that we'll be putting out some news on here in the next few weeks. Some of the parameters of that, but really, the size and scope of the project really changed a few months ago when we announced that we were going straight into a feasibility study that would encompass not only various options for reprocessing the heap, but also on the reinitiation of mining in the permitted mining areas that the KEG encompasses.
When would that be available? How long is that going to take to really get that to the point where it's an economic report that investors can look at?
Well, the feasibility study is underway by Tetra Tech now, and then it'll be combined with the work that Kappas Cassidy did on the heap leach. We still have a timeline to get there by the end of this year. It's extremely tight. And of course, since we added this drilling that's in September, that might conceivably push it out a month or so. But sometime year end or thereabouts. We're still trying everything we can to get done this year, but some of it will be at the mercy of the assay labs from the drill program that's coming up, because as you might imagine, that's a very tight timeline.
They're backed up pretty bad. Yeah, we're seeing that across the board. But yeah, I mean, that data is going to be a big milestone for you, I think. And you've worked hard for it and towards it, and you're close. So I think that's going to be a good moment for Golden Predator.
Well, we're excited about it. It's just nice to see this thing, I guess, from the exploration standpoint and the development standpoint, to actually fulfill the geologic vision of it, because we've got these enormous strike length, 3 major thrust faults that are occupied with gold mineralized intrusive.
Yeah.
And to see that actually come into one modelable resource, or larger modelable resources, really kind of tells us where we're going with the whole project. And then we've got a completely different system on the south end of the property with a porphyry the syenite porphyry that's younger mineralization, lower grade, but still very consistent mineralization and leachable to the maximum depths we've drilled. So
Yeah.
it's as a geologist, sometimes it's a little distracting with all the opportunity we have there, yet to keep focused on the engineering aspect, which of course we've got some really qualified people doing that.
Yeah, it gets exciting, and you don't know where to start, what to do next. You have to kind of grab yourself by the bootstraps and just hone in on what's economic and what's going to make the market and stock move. Yeah, that's the case. Well, listen, I wanted to also mention in this at the tail end, because you and I have been talking about uranium for quite some time. We both have said it's going to happen, but we both kind of felt it was probably years away, which turned out to be correct. But we're both now sensing that we're getting closer to that moment. So you want to say anything about uranium right here, just as a segue?
Well, sure. Since you're given the opportunity, I think, we all thought it'd be 4 or 5 years, maybe even as many as 10 after Fukushima, but we passed 10 a year or so ago. And, I think we're really now on the threshold of a move over the next couple of years. We've had a couple of major top 10 mine producers shut down permanently, or in the process of shutting down. The Russian suspension agreement is being renewed, and probably under far more favorable terms for the domestic industry here in the U.S. Meanwhile, demand has continued pretty robust and will be increasing. Small nuclear reactors, you can go on and on. The picture is looking pretty good, and to that end, a sister company, Encore, has just put out some news today regarding acquisition of a couple of processing licenses and more than doubling of its historic resources with an all-star team. So I think that looks equally bright.
Yes, and I'm going to be inviting Encore Energy to a MIF, an upcoming MIF. So we'll look forward when we can do that and explain that in greater detail to investors. So
Good, good. Yep. No, really good time for both yellow metals, as they say.